we're going to explore how to construct a right triangle in the FXCG500 Casio Graphing Calculator using the Geometry app. So this is the calculator. It looks very much like the handheld right now, even though I'm using the emulator. I am going to switch it to the other view in just a moment so that you can see the different views. But students would be looking at it this way. They could be using their stylus, they could be using their finger, and I'm using my mouse because I'm on the computer. But I can toggle between all the menu items. So as with all Casio graphing calculators, it's menu operated. So I'm going to be going into the geometry menu. So when I click that, it brings me to the geometry screen. And you'll notice that students who have a handheld, this screen is a much larger screen than a normal graphing calculator, so they can be doing their work right in here. The stylus makes it very easy to manipulate and move things around. So I could stay this way working with the students, but I'm going to actually expand this into the other option when you're on the emulator, which is the resizable mode. So right now this is in fixed mode where it looks exactly like what the students have, but I'm going to go into the other mode just because as a teacher I would want them to see as much as possible. So to do that on the emulator, I'm right clicking and I'm going to choose this resizable mode. So all I'm doing is changing the view. I'm taking this window and making it bigger and able to change size. So you'll see it takes just a moment. So here it is now, and I can make that screen very large or very small. So let's make it as large as we want right here. Let's kind of move this off to the side. This is now kind of where I can find different options for the calculator in general. So you'll notice if I go to applications, there's all the menu icons, but now in a list form. And I can also see that up here as well. So now we're in the geometry. This is full-on dynamic geometry software, and so it has all the tools you expect. And we are going to construct a right triangle. And to do that, we need to make sure that we can't just draw it and make it look like a right triangle. We want it to stay a right triangle no matter how I move it. So in order to do that, I need to use construction tools. I need to construct a perpendicular that's always going to stay a right angle. So I'm going to be showing you how to do that here. There's more than one way to construct, so this is just one possibility. I'm going to start with a side. So it's just going to be your basic right triangle, not an isosceles right triangle, which we will talk about in a minute. So I'm going to get my segment tool, which I can get up here by looking at the pictures, or I could also go to draw and choose segment from there. So two different ways to kind of approach that. So here's my tool. It's highlighted in blue. That means it's selected. So I'm just going to make a starting segment. Doesn't matter how long because this is dynamic. I'm going to put that tool away. And I can therefore select an endpoint and then use my mouse, stylus, finger to make that segment as long or as short as I want. That's the beauty of dynamic. So we'll just make it right there. That looks good. So you'll notice now that I have a much larger screen, I have a lot more area to work with, whereas a student on their regular calculator is just going to be working in that small space. But as a teacher, I might want to be having a bigger space. So now I want to have one perpendicular at either vertex. It doesn't really matter which one I choose, so I'm just going to choose B. So I want to construct. So constructions are here in this menu, right? Or again, if I go to draw, I can go down to the construct menu, and here's all the things that you can construct. So I am wanting to construct perpendicular to guarantee a right angle at all times. So to do that, I need to select the point where I want the perpendicular to go and what it should be perpendicular to, so the segment. So notice I selected two things, a point and the segment. I'm going to go up back to my construction tools and choose perpendicular. Oh, you know, I think I chose, so I'm going to go up to my construction tools and choose perpendicular through a point. There we go. And so now I have a perpendicular. Well, that doesn't really help me with my triangle, right? I need a triangle, but notice as I move this, it stays perpendicular. So basically, I now need a point to be on this line. So I'm going to go get my point tool, and I'm going to put a point on that line. All right, so now I have a point and it's on that line. I can move it, it stays on that line. But now since it's on this line, I can hide the line. So that's a nice thing. Constructions, when you're working with students, you want them to use their tools to construct underlying features, so I needed a perpendicular, but I don't need this line anymore. I really only want just the side BC, not this whole line. So let's hide this line. So to hide in the CG500, you're going to select it and go up to, Edit. And under Properties, you'll see the version Hide. So when I hit Hide, all it does is hide that line. I don't see it anymore. It's still there. It's still an underlying construct that's controlling C and B and A, making sure, but I don't need to see it. Now I'm just going to get my segment tool and connect my 3 points because I have my 3 vertices, so I need a segment. So I'm going to connect C to B with a segment. There's my third side, and C to A. So now you see I have a right triangle, and if I click on B and then move it, my triangle is going to change in size, but it's going to always be a right triangle because I constructed this section right here, these 2 sides, or this line and this side, to be perpendicular, so they will remain perpendicular. So that is the key here. And you could then measure the angle. So to measure the angle, you select the 2 sides of it, go to Draw, Measure. I think I have something else selected. There we go. Select the 2 sides, and it should pop up here. So it's showing me that it's 90. I'm going to click yes, 90, and that's angle. Let's even label this. So notice I can actually go up and edit and add in labels as I need them. So angle B is 90, and then I could measure the other 2 very quickly. Select the 2 sides, click that measurement, and now I'm just going to change the label to match the angle. So angle C and then angle A. Same thing. So very easy to measure and change the labels, especially in the emulator. You can do this in the handheld as well. It's just a lot quicker and efficient in the emulator. So now I've got my angles and I can change them, but what will not change is this right angle. So if I can make it a smaller triangle, bring an A in, but it still remains a right triangle. So that's what we want students to discover, that this right triangle, even if I change its size and its shape, one angle is always 90 degrees and the other 2 are acute. And I could measure the sides and such like that. Now let's say I wanted to construct an isosceles right triangle. To do that, I need to have 2 sides congruent, right? So we've already talked about this in a previous video, but I could then grab my circle and make a circle. And I know this is going to give me this is my compass tool. I know this is going to give me congruent sides, but how do I guarantee that they are congruent and right? Well, they have to be the ones that are have the perpendicular. So to do that, I am going to get my segment and make 1 radii, and then my perpendicular needs to be at either D or E. Actually, that's not true. It needs to be at D, right? Because I need my congruent sides, my 2 short legs, to be the place where the 90-degree angle is. So I am going to make I don't want to just draw a segment. I need to make sure it is congruent. So I want to construct a perpendicular. So I want to construct a perpendicular to that radius through that point. And now I want the intersection here of these 2. So I'm going to go to, my intersection symbol here, make an intersection. Oh, I think I have more than one thing selected. Very picky. You need to make sure you only have, if it's not doing what you want it to do, it's because you have more than one thing selected. So now I have my point here and I can now hide, and I actually don't need my circle anymore either. So I'm going to select these 2 things and go to Edit, Properties, Hide. It's going to hide them. I don't want this point. So you can pretty much hide anything you don't want to see by selecting it and go to Edit, Properties, and Hide. So now I have my 3rd point, which I know is perpendicular because it's part of that perpendicular that I constructed, but now I can use my segment tool and make my triangle. And there we go. So now we have two different right triangles. This one's isosceles, and we could, measure and prove that these sides are the same, but we used a circle on the radii of that same circle, so therefore they must be congruent. And we made them perpendicular, so it's right. So all these things you can keep in mind while you are doing these constructions. So two different ways to construct right triangles.